Wow, thank you. So when Yoshi asked me to do this talk, the first thing that hit me was like, oh shit, sorry, swearing already. First words out, what am I going to talk about? Because I went straight to an idea. And I probably wrote this about 5 times, getting more and more nervous about what I'm going to say and who am I going to talk to and all of that. And then my flight got cancelled last night. So I stayed in Frankfurt for the night and I was back in a hotel and I suddenly had this moment and said, Yoshi said to me, this is about people, not ideas. So I'm going to talk about me, which is really unusual. And I think that's probably why I find it so difficult. So when I was asked for a title, I used this quote: when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I'm afraid. So I have been speaking on stages for about 15 years. But when I began, I was probably doing most of them for free, 50 quid. And I stood on stage and tried to be who I thought the audience wanted me to be. And the more I've become myself in this last decade, the more I have fun with it. So yes, I always get stage fright. I was sitting there earlier going, oh my God, I'm going to be sick. But then I get on stage and it's okay. So I wanted to talk to you about why I feel less afraid and what's changed. And rather than talking about just particular scenarios, I wanted to talk about the themes. So I wanted to set some context. So Tobias said that there was a trigger warning. My trigger warning is that I'm going to mention Burning Man. And the reason I mentioned Burning Man is because the first time I went, when I still had hair, you notice, it wasn't a wig, that was mine, was 2012. And I went 2012, 13, 14, and then again 2022. And one of the things about Burning Man was there were 10 core principles. And I spent an absolute fortune going to this crazy place in the desert and realizing that I would go there, live these 10 principles, and that was a place I felt like I could truly be me. And suddenly I was like, I did a degree in maths. That maths does not add up because I'm spending this fortune to go and spend 1 week in the desert to be completely me. So what I decided was I need to take those core principles off the playa and I need to work out what my core principles are and how I live that every day. And so, see, suddenly I've got goosebumps. On to the second thing. So the second context I want to set is that about 18 months ago, I was diagnosed with quite profound ADHD. I already knew I had dyslexia, and I'm also borderline autistic and Asperger's. So being in crowds and all sorts of things, not great. But finally my life made sense. Because as a child, my mum would say, I was a social justice warrior in Afro puffs. Anything that was to do with injustice, whether it was mine or not, used to make me cry. And so now I understand a lot more about myself, what drives me. But the other thing is that I now realize and understand why I can see all of these patterns, that I couldn't understand why nobody else was talking about the patterns I saw. And so that's the second set of context, the context that I wanted to add. So values, pattern recognition. And then Pika, yes? Pitcher, oh, I tried so hard. Pitcher mentioned menopause. So next week, I turn 52. And I started perimenopause at the age of 47. That photo when I had the dreadlocks, that was pre-perimenopause. This is what's happened. But that whole experience changed my life because it helped me to see the world very differently. I turn 52 next week, and I am having the best time of my life at 50. When I hit 50 as a woman, oh my God, I had so much fun because you just go, I don't care, I don't care. I'm not worried about that. This is who I am. The extra weight around the belly, that's fine, I've earned it. You know, and so this is who I am. So I wanted to give you that context. And now what I'm going to do is just go through some of the lessons that I have learned and some of my values and how they show up in the work that I do. So the first lesson, humility. So I believe that humility is really about strength, and leadership comes through vulnerability. So me standing up here talking to all of you, being, I think, the only black person in the room, the only person of color in the room in a small town in Germany, is like, ah. And you know, it takes a lot of bravery to go and stand and go, I know I'm going to be the only one. I know when I'm walking through town, people look at me funny. I know that I had a weird situation at breakfast this morning, but I still do it because I've got to that stage. Those things about the context, I've got to this stage where I'm like, you know what? This also makes me uncomfortable, and that means there's growth in it. So that's why I do it. It's not because I think I'm an expert, because whenever I do a talk, what I start with is, I always go back to a particular quote, which is, the purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, it's to give you questions to think upon. So success for me for anything that I do is if you've got more questions than answers, because it means that you will remember it. So for me, it was really about vulnerability. How can I be vulnerable? So saying yes to this, vulnerable. Talking about myself, vulnerable. But I've done lots of really great talks, and it has been, an adventure. Again, just before that one, if anyone was sitting next to me, what you heard was, and then I get up on stage and I forget all of that other stuff because I'm not trying to be an expert. I'm trying to just have a conversation. So the vulnerability comes, this was in Dubai, which was really interesting because we know the kind of politics and the way that things are in Dubai. And the first time I went to Dubai, no men spoke to me. They wouldn't even look me in the eye, and I was a keynote speaker. The second time I went to Dubai, I went and I was asking this question, and the one question that I now realize that I have been trying to ask all my life is, what type of ancestor do you want to be? And it's a huge question, but that's basically what I do now. I help people to see the world differently. So even there, again, going on a great stage, but the photo that you've got on the front here of me was actually me on the stage at TEDx in Amsterdam, and I cried. I didn't intend to cry, but I talked about the fact that it only takes 0.1% GDP for us to reverse a lot of the stuff that we've done to the planet. TED, the main TED event, tickets start at £5,000. So 0.1%, that's a cup of coffee. And just the reality of that made me cry. And I don't hide those things anymore, because when I used to get up on stage, it would be this, I've got to be the perfect person that they want me to be, and it's corporate, and I have to wear this. And I always messed it up because I was too much in my own head. And when I used to do talks, people used to go, oh, but we can see you thinking on stage. Because someone would ask a question, I'd be like, and then I would disagree with myself. I'm human. We're all human. And that's what I love about the humility and the vulnerability of that. But also, it doesn't matter what stages I've been on. This, I think, is one of the things that I hold dear, is that just at the start of the pandemic, I was being interviewed for a podcast for Mental Health First Aid England. It's a national social enterprise. We train people to be mental health and suicide first aiders. And I was being interviewed by the CEO for the podcast. And they have this thing, my whole self. And he's a white guy. And I was like, yeah, it's okay for you to do your whole self. My whole self in the work environment can be dangerous. I could be marginalized. I will be on the receiving end of microaggressions and micro-invalidations. And so he said to me, well, if you want to do something about it, our chair's leaving, why don't you apply? I was like, shit. So we had a whole series of interviews. And then before the last interview, I said to him, okay, you know what? I'm going to tell you my whole self. And if you still want me, then we'll do the final interview. And I did. And I've been chair, this is my third year. So the first term was 3 years, and the focus was anti-racism, menopause, and all forms of othering. What's the impact that those have? Because we believe that good mental health is a social justice issue, and that if you spend a lot of time in the work environment, they have a duty of care to make sure that you are okay. We also have to make sure that we take responsibility for our mental health and well-being. And I've just started, they asked me to do a second term. I've just started the second term in September, and my remit for that one is the impact that nature and technology has on mental health and well-being. And that's why I love this role, because I get to bring all these other bits and pieces. I would just say, if you see me closing my eyes, it's because there's too much going on and I need to focus. It's not that I'm falling asleep. The other bit that happened is that then I got asked to be the chair of the advisory group for the Centre for Cultural Value. They advise, it's a research centre in Leeds University, and we advise government and policymakers on what is culture. So I said yes, because then suddenly I can bring the two together and go, what's the impact that culture has on mental health and well-being, and how does that impact our economy and our things? These are the roles that I feel most vulnerable in, regardless of the stage, all the other stuff, because it's a huge responsibility. But I love the fact that that's what happens. I have the opportunity to stand in places and to bring different voices together. So really that whole bit is about, we are obsessed with what things are called. Strategists, futurists. When I first got the title futurist, I didn't even know what it meant. Like, I don't have a crystal ball. We're obsessed with what things are called. But really, the last 10 years for me has been about understanding what lies beneath that. So it's less about the aesthetics, it's more about the ethics, including how we develop emerging technologies. The next one is trust. So this is about reciprocity without ego. So yes, we all have egos. I've definitely got one because I'm standing on stage in a pink hat. Yes. We all have egos, but it's when our ego gets in the way of ourselves or gets in the way of anything else, then it becomes a problem. If we only do things because it's going to make us look good, rather than make us vulnerable, things are skewed. So for me, trust is a really big thing. So, where is he? Yossi. There you go. This is where, no, this is not the one. This one is Avalon. So there is, have you been to Avalon? Okay. So Kinnernet is a beautiful gathering of creative, curious people, technologists, artists, venture capitalists. And what we all do is you have to kind of leave your ego at the door, because it's an unconference. It's not about who's got the best idea. It's about coming together to have these conversations. So this is the one where I met you, Estonia, in February. But we had, correcting myself. We had a beautiful time because it was about coming out to a place to stay together. This one was powerful because we all stayed in the same hotel, which made it different than everything else. And what you found is that just the fact that you were invited, you were a Kinnanou, and people knew you, there was a level of trust and there was a level of transparency that just happened quicker than I've seen at any other event, because it was curated. But also there's a level of understanding of, you've got to leave your ego at the door, because if you come in with an ego, you're not going to be invited back. So it was a beautiful place to understand that. I remember the first time, I think I've been going for 4 years now, and the first time I turned up, I was invited. I was apologetic for my existence in the space, because all of these people had these great careers and they had built all of these things, and I was like, oh shit, I just have an idea that I haven't executed yet, and I don't know what's going to happen. But the people, the Kinnanauts, the people at those events, they trusted me, they trusted my ideas. Many became my mentors, my friends, and over the years helped me to develop my ideas and to change, and also challenge them, because it's healthy to have that kind of challenge. The next, diversity. I've already mentioned it in here. But diversity is really about innovation through difference and collective intelligence. Look, on a microscopic level, none of us would exist without diversity. It's just a fact. Everything else is a choice. And so that's where the issue comes, because regardless of whether people have a budget or not, I am always going to be Black woman. And so when we start to think about diversity in terms of how we change things, how we bring new voices, different voices, lived experiences to things, it's another reason why I said yes. Because I know that it was going to be different. I knew that I would probably be in the minority. But it also means that I get to learn from everybody here and from you as well, from the experiences. But also, hopefully, I change some perceptions by being here. So some of the things that I've done around this kind of area of diversity is, about 15 years ago, I used to work in advertising. And I helped, the School of Communication Arts was a program that had been built in the late 80s by a guy called John Gillard, who felt that the industry, there was too much nepotism. It was the son, daughter of this, of that. And so he built this school that was not about qualifications. It wasn't about who you knew. It was about, do you have ideas and can you communicate your ideas? So I left the full-time job in advertising to go and help set up the school, a startup. And what we did is we got people to really think about, who are you? What's your voice? In the first 2 weeks of session, students learned more about how their own brain works, how they think, how they create ideas, how they tell stories, which was very different than anything else. The school has been going for 15 years. It's one of the top advertising schools in the country, and it's funded by the advertising industry. And the reason I said yes is because I wanted to widen the diversity of the advertising industry, not just ethnically, not just gender, but socioeconomically as well. Lived experience. And so that was one of the things why diversity, I always felt that the value of diversity has to come in everything that I'm doing. This was TED. If you can't see me, still had hair. That's me there. This was TED in Vancouver in 2019. And it was amazing to actually go to TED, but also to know that there was Black at TED. There was this self-organizing community of people who were like, we have to bring more voices. We have to bring different lived experiences. So diversity, it is such an important thing. And the reason I say that is because, this really pissed me off. So we are developing emerging technologies, and we have lots of people developing, working on AI platforms and what have you. This was something that was it was supposed to be an AI photo booth that turned you into a fairy or a gnome, all these things. Everybody looked wonderful until I did it, and it bleached my skin. Now, if we can get AI to tell the difference between a car and a tree, why can't we get it to do this? The person, I had a conversation with a person who was using the platform, whose technology it was. And he's like, oh, no, but I just need to change the filter. If you know you need to change the filter, then something's still wrong. Thank you, yes. But it's true, right? Because I was so upset by this. And it's like, oh, no. And I went, I'm sorry, but if you can get AI to tell the difference between a car and a tree, the least you could do is sort this shit out. This is why diversity is important, because the people designing, creating, coding, everything need to have different lived experiences, or we're just going to get more of this. So, curiosity. It's about learning and growth through play. We tend to educate play out of people. So when we're kids, we play just for play's sake, but suddenly you get to a certain age level, and then it's about competition. You have to win. You've got to beat this one. This is our economic systems. Our economic systems and structures are based on competition. Nothing's ever going to change if it's always that, because it's like a permanent game of chicken. Who's going to step off first? What I believe in is that we should have curiosity. We should bring play back into things. So Kinanet is a playground, because there's always a costume party, which is great because we all get dressed up in a theme and we have such a great time and being playful, and there's all sorts of... It's important that we don't forget to play for play's sake. So, play. The College of Extraordinary Experiences, last year, it's run in Poland, it's one of the most beautiful, playful places that I've been as an adult. What they do is they invite experienced designers from around the world. Whether it's LARPing, Dungeons and Dragons, Cirque du Soleil, you all come together in this stunning castle. We're given cloaks and running around like Harry Potter. But we're learning how to play and to design, and we learn from each other. And now, I love the cello. It's my favorite instrument. One day, I hope to learn to play. But this is a friend, so he does these immersive experiences where he puts you, the cello, on your body, and then he plays it, and you feel the vibrations going through you. That is just beautiful. It changes something. So when we're designing things, when we're doing the things that we do, how can we bring play into it? I remember one of the guys that I used to work with, I do this exercise with people sometimes to help them work out what lies beneath the surface of the job titles and the roles that they play. And you end up getting to this point where you have like a strap line. And mine is enthusiastic curator of people, patterns, and stories. I think everybody who knows me will go, yeah, that's you. It's that ability to let go, get out of our own heads, and go, you know what, I'm just going to have fun. I think that's one of the things that I love about myself, especially over the last 10 years, is that I've learned to I've let go of the crap that I hold on in my head, the narratives, and I just go, I'm just going to try, and if it doesn't work, that's okay. A couple of years ago, I have these brainwaves, and I was like, the worst thing that can happen to me is I become bored of myself. So I'm going to try new things. And at the time, Groupon was huge, and so I just went on and found these different experiences. I'm like, I'm going to try it. Belly dancing. That takes some stamina. Pole dancing, no, my skin is not made for that. Pottery. And we did this. I went to an area that I don't live in, and it was beautiful because we were learning how to do sculpture, but only using our hands. And it taught me patience. And it's the idea of just playing and trying things and doing things because it feels good. So let's see if this is going to work. Yes. So I love the fact that over the last 10 years, what's happened is that I'm now in this space that I've kind of created for myself where I bring together ecology, technology, innovation, and art. And it's a whole mashup of all of those things. And over the last 10 years, what's happened is I've been increasingly asked to go and speak at conferences or go and consult and to be a provocateur to make people feel uncomfortable, which is great, because if you're going to pay me for that, why not? It's great because it's this ability to go, I want to try something different. So let's see if I can get this to work. So this was a podcast, again, really vulnerable, really nervous. This was a financial services podcast. And they emailed me, and I'm like, I don't work in financial services. I know nothing about it. And they went, no, we just want to have a conversation with you about what you think with this provocateur outside mind. So let's see. Is it going to work? Organizations end up in these bubbles. So you have a financial services conference that is just financial services people. Bring theatre in, bring emerging technology, bring comedians in. Do it. But I'm not being flippant about it. I am serious that we need to bring in different voices, different ways of seeing the world. Bring in artists into a bank, into a financial services, because artists are storytellers and they reflect the nuances of life. Now, to be able to bring somebody in who has a different language, a different skill set, into having a conversation about the underlying intention of a bank or financial services, I think could be beautiful. I'm all for artistic residencies in these organizations. Organizations end up in these bubbles. So you have a financial services conference. So that's one of the things that increasingly the conversations that I'm having now is going into these big corporates and going, what would an artist residency look like? What would a comedian in residence look like? Because we need to start changing. If we want to change the systems and structures, if we want to change the world that like we say we do, firstly, we need to change our language, because anybody talking in the language of colonizer, of developed, underdeveloped, and developing, nothing's going to change. So we need to change the language, we need to change the ideas, and to do that, we need to bring in different people. And that's what I've really been proud of over the last 10 years, is that initially when I started, people were going, oh, too weird, too hippie, no one's going to want to work with you. Then the pandemic happened, and what we believed was normal suddenly went to shit. And everybody had an existential crisis, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, and people went, we need something different. I'm ready. So as a result of all of that, this is a project that I'm working on now with Friends of the Earth, which came through the College of Extraordinary Experiences. And what we're doing is we are thinking about the idea of collective imagining. What will happen if you bring lots of people together to imagine what their relationship with nature is? So again, that curiosity and play in the last 10 years, I was part of an artist residency. I was like, oh my God, I'm an imposter. And then they said, we want you to make a work of art that helps people understand their relationship with climate change. I was like, shit. People are doing stuff in the metaverse and all of this stuff. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Pressure. And I went, you know what? I connect with music and sound. I have synesthesia. So sometimes I see music as colors, and actually I can create soundtracks where I can see how the notes come together and when the transitions happen. So that's what this is about. I taught myself how to use Logic Pro to create a soundscape. I didn't know it was going to work. It worked. And then as a result of that, I've been commissioned to make another one. This time, though, I've got myself a music teacher, but it's that ability to go, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to try. So, activism. Activism isn't just about going on protest marches. For me, it's about empathetic and compassionate evolution. It's about believing in something bigger than yourself. Doesn't have to be yours. Doesn't have to be your lived experience. I'm not going to ask you to put your hands up, but I'm going to ask you a question because I asked it before. How many, to the men in here, do you consider yourself a feminist? Okay. Do you consider yourself a feminist because you've got daughters, wives, sisters, blah, blah, blah? Okay. Because if you said yes, you're not really a feminist because you're focusing on how it impacts you. True feminism, true activism is not about how it impacts you, because all people do is center those things on themselves. That was a lesson I learned over the last 10 years. And so that's why when I'm talking about activism, I worked with Procter & Gamble, and they brought me in to try to create, to help their staff unleash their inner activist, which was amazing. To go into a huge corporate and go, we're going to turn all your people into activism, and they may be going on marches and they may be doing all this stuff. That's the beauty that I've seen over the last 10 years. I'd rather be a bad feminist than no feminist at all. Roxane Gay, if you haven't read the book, great. She talked about being a bad feminist because she was like, I like all that hip-hop music where the lyrics are a little bit, but I'm also a feminist. The other thing to recognize is that whose feminism are we talking about? Because what many people understand as feminism was decided and created it sacrificed a lot of people. It sacrificed a lot of us. So my lived experience will be very different than somebody else, than a white woman's lived experience who lives in the same town, does the same job, everything. I've been here, less than probably 24 hours, and I've had several microaggressions, even in the street, and those things cut deep, and you don't always see the impact of that. So that's why I decided I'm going to be my kind of feminist, because it has to be based on my lived experience. This was something that happened that really interesting. Remember I said I don't really, the labels thing. Suddenly some people started calling me a designer, experienced designer. I'm like, I've never studied that. But because of my neurodivergences, I realized that what I was doing was creating safe and brave spaces to bring people in so that they can experience the world the way that I do. I didn't realize that's what I was doing. But when I think of things, it was always about this multi-level, multi-dimensional thing. One of the things I was speaking to Tobias earlier about is the fact that I really feel that our technology, our emerging technologies have gone from linear to multidimensional, non-linear. And I think that part of the reason for that is because we have more neurodivergent people designing things. And so we're designing in a way that replicates nature. And I think that I find it beautiful The fact that we are designing things that really represent how life is. So this was just, I was asked to write a chapter in the book about Afrofuturism. Now, never been asked to do anything like that, but this whole journey of being authentically myself, of living my values and being unapologetic about it has led to these amazing opportunities where I'm like, I don't know how to do it, but it makes me uncomfortable enough for me to go, I'm going to try, because I know that there's going to be learning and growth inside of that. So, cyborg shamanism. I won't go into this now, but cyborg shamanism is the result of 9 years of me mind mapping patterns that I saw that I couldn't explain. And I can show you the mind map. It's beautiful and insane and everything. But it got to this point where I went, I believe that we tend to have a reductionist view of what technology is. The patterns I saw said that technology does 3 things. It helps us to understand and navigate our relationship with ourselves, with others, and with our environment. So you can have the mobile phone, AI, but on the other side, my hippie side, the shamanic side, you have ayahuasca, you have plant medicine, you have all of these things, all doing the same thing, trying to help us understand and navigate our relationship with self, other, and our environment. So the journey is the same. The tools, the technologies are different. And when I first started, I thought, well, on one hand, you've got the cyborgs, who are just digital shaman. And on the other side, you've got the shaman, who are ecological cyborgs. And so I carried on following this pattern, spoke to quantum physicists who recognize a pattern in emergence, spoke to religious leaders who recognize it in belief systems. And that's what cyborg shamanism became. It's now a framework that I use to really help explore this lens. And I realized that it's patterns and things that I saw in different spaces that I couldn't explain. So in a break, later on, if you want to have a chat, I can do that. And that led to the question that I mentioned earlier. The one question that I really feel that we should be asking and answering right now, the one that pushes me forward and gets me to say yes to things, is what type of ancestor do you want to be? And it's not about having children and, I don't have kids. But we can still be a good ancestor because we have to recognize that everything we do is leaving a trail. So I once did some consulting for a blockchain company who the CEO was like, yes, I want everybody to have freedom to say what they want, and it's about this, and we're about to scale. I was like, okay, but you also have to take responsibility for the fact that somebody may use your platform and have nefarious intentions. You can't just put it out there and go, well, I'm done. We have to think about these things. If we really want to change the world, if we want to have the world that we say we do, we really need to start thinking about what are the legacies, what is the long tail that we are leaving. What's been great is not just doing the talks, but actually industry is taking heed. So I did a talk for the luxury brand industry at home in the UK. You can tell my accent, right? And I stood up and I said to the luxury brand, you have to remember that what you are doing is creating legacies. It's not just creating this competition of who's got the best handbag and all of this. You started with creating legacies. So what they did is they spent a year researching themselves to really understand the legacies that they were leaving, and the good and the bad, holding that mirror up to themselves and going, this is what we need to face the fact that we are part of the problem. Over the last 10 years, that's what I've seen more and more. Many more organizations going, you know what? Yeah, we are part of the problem. If we can hold the mirror up and be honest with ourselves that we are a bit shit sometimes, we can change things, because we're not trying to we can lie to other people, we can't lie to ourselves. So, all of this stuff led me to where I am now, which is I had those values at the beginning, and I lived them deliberately, and you can see where they were peppered in the different things that I did over the last 10 years. Now looking forward with that futurist kind of crystal ball, whatever you want to call it, I'm looking at cyborg shamanism, and this whole journey has got me to a place of going, okay, so if we want to change the world, then my framework is leave. Let's leave the old ways behind. What are the new values that we need to have as a society, as cultures, as organizations to change things? Breathe. What are the tensions in the system? What are the things that are holding us to get in, making us tense? Firstly, holding the mirror up to ourselves. Grow. What are the tools, technologies, rituals, behaviors that we may need to change, to do, to have, to make the first two true? Flow. How are we going to make this sustainable? So what type of ancestor do you want to be? Many indigenous cultures, they talk about things in 7 generations. That's why I asked the thing about feminism, because it's not about how it impacts you, it's about how it impacts the world. And then the last one is ground. How do we turn this into kinship? How do we turn this into a movement and make sure that the values, so I'm presenting it as linear, but it's not. And so for me, the last 10 years have been really focusing on what is that first value that we really need to have. It's regeneration. So this was taken in early August. I got the opportunity to go to Brazil to speak at a conference, which was great. But before I went to the conference, I was talking about regeneration. But before I went to the conference, I went deep into the national park, deep into a little village that was mostly indigenous peoples, because I said, I want to understand the land. I want to be authentic in what I'm doing. So we went on these beautiful hikes, and this is a cactus that was burnt, and it's an example of regeneration. At Kinnanet, we've had conversations about the fact that we need to do better with our AI platforms and all of these things, but most people, we need to do better, but in order to do better, we need to change what we measure. Most people will recognize things as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow stole that from the First Nations Indians and flipped it. For me, the first thing that we need is we need to make sure that all our systems and structures and everything we're doing is regenerative. That's the pattern that I've been seeing over the last couple of years. The fact that I'm going to Milan in November, and this is IAB, Interactive Advertising Bureau, 1,500 digital marketeers, and the whole conference is about regeneration. What are they going to do? How are they going to have conversations? These are some of the trends that I've seen in the past that are now starting to be amplified. Let's see if this works. So, regeneration also about land. When I talk about technology, I always map it onto looking at where we see these patterns. This is a mangrove. This is the photo that I took out of the window of the plane when I was flying over Salvador in Brazil. We start to see the patterns occurring in different places. This one. How many of you have heard of Client Earth? I absolutely love them. So Client Earth, law firm, one client, the Earth. And they are suing companies based on their own policies, because everything is about regeneration. It's about how are we not doing damage. So when I talk to people about mental health and well-being, I've had 4 burnouts because I didn't learn from the first 3, obviously. But, we have to recognize that we need to recognize that things are happening quickly and we need to make changes, otherwise we're going to just crash and burn. When you speak to people who work in climate change, my partner, he works in climate change, water conservation, many of them will say we've already passed the tipping point. So what are we going to do? Everything that we're doing now, everything that we have to do, the behaviors that we're doing now won't be felt until 20 or 30 years now. The climate change things that we have now, that happened 20 or 30 years ago when we were talking about CFCs and the ozone layer. So this is why I'm looking at the patterns of the past, looking at where we are and thinking about where we need to head. This one, trust and transparency, trust in here again. But in order to try and move things forward, in order to change things, we also need to be transparent. And this is something that I've become more over the last 10 years, very transparent about the fact that menopausal, and sometimes it will just suck the words out of my head, the fact that I'm neurodivergent and I have to close my eyes sometimes, or I've got rings and things that I spin to try and calm me down or shake. Whatever we're doing, we have to be transparent. We have to. So I love this image. Even when we're talking about building new technologies, the patterns are there. They're always there. This, great. So again, another example of transparency. I was at the conference when he did this. Kelly Chase, huge charity. They also have an investment arm, and they recognize that they weren't helping the situation. So at the conference, he announced that they are closing the doors, that they are going to give away their money because the way that they have been working, the systems and structures are still colonial and making things worse. So sometimes we have to get out of our own way. And that's what I've learned over the last 10 years. I know when my voice should not be the one in the room. I will get other people to come and do talks because it shouldn't always be me. That's part of the ego. That's part of all of this humility stuff and the vulnerability is going, you know what? No. It's okay to say no, and no is a full sentence. Common unity. People talk about community, and they also talk about cultural fit. And this idea of cultural fit is just language that is used to keep other people out without actually being responsible and saying why you don't want people in. So I talk about common unity. We need more cultures and communities that reflect the intersectionality of our identities. It's the stuff that I do with organizations. I'm currently the external diversity and inclusion consultant for 5 advertising agencies. And what I've been doing over the years is building these communities and actually going, right, what we need someone who represents the planet. We need someone who represents neurodiversity. We need all of this. So when you have a conversation about the culture of the office, the training, designing new systems, new structures, it's about recognizing that the different lived experiences, the different perspectives are good because from it comes growth. This is a toolbox that I just thought I would throw up there because I think it's amazing. So this is about activism. Beautiful Trouble is a wonderful toolbox that what they've done is they have looked at activism across, especially the global south, and they've turned them into strategies and tactics and principles. I use this all the time now, but this is the stuff that activism has turned into something else. It's not just going and banging. There is a strategy, and this is what I'm seeing happening in organizations. And this is why I do what I do, because I feel that I'm an activist first. And so my own frameworks over the years have been tightened and changed and had various people. Tobias and I recently, for the last couple of months, we had an accountability session on a Friday where we would hold each other accountable for the things, the decisions that we're doing or we haven't, even the lies that we would tell ourselves. Systemic innovation. We forget that what we are creating is creating us. We can't escape it. If you want to go that deep, then we can say that I tend to say, if everything is made possible by organic matter, then this is my distant cousin. We've got to remember that the stuff that we're doing is creating us. And so if you haven't watched this, definitely watch it, because these are the patterns. The fact that we can have these kind of conversations now, the fact that I've been a part of that, of being upfront and honest and saying, look, this is not working. Human thriving. We've all just come through the pandemic. And most of us here, it's as devastating as it has been, most of us here are here because of people who didn't look like us, who didn't have our lived experience. And so we went from this, when we were in those lockdowns, I have no spleen. For most of the first year, I had to stay at home on my own in a 4th-floor flat, couldn't have anybody in because we didn't know what it was. But what we saw was the resurgence of these communities of people coming together to try and support each other. We've gone through that thing of making sure that everybody was surviving. Now we're on this other side of thriving, and that's what I'm interested in. The alternative, what I love about them is they're looking at what should the political future look like. Is it just parties? Is it voices? These are some of the conversations now that I'm really interested in, and the things that have the work. It feels like a waterfall, because when I first started my career, people were going, "Oh, you just can't make up your mind. You're doing this and you're doing that and blah blah blah." And now it is the time of the T-shaped people, of the people who have portfolio careers, who think differently, because what I've done is been a waterfall. I've learned this, it's gone into this, it's gone into this, it's gone into this. So this is why I love this, because it is thinking about changing our systems. And then mental health, well-being, and social justice. As I said, we spend most of our time at work. I'm really proud that I am the chair of Mental Health First Aid England. I was definitely the wild card, and they know that. But what I love is the fact that I've been accepted for me. I can be my weird and wonderful self. I can run off to festivals. I can make headdresses and have a great party. And then I can still run a board meeting and speak in the media and do all of these things. All of this has led to this point of being less afraid of who I am and how I show up. So this is just an example of that. She Says is a global organization for female creatives. I sit on the London community, and we started to talk about what are some of the ways that we can help people with their mental health and well-being. Remember, I said 4 burnouts. I do not intend to have another one. So we need to start talking. For me, I'm not afraid to talk about the fact that I've had them. I'm not afraid to talk about the fact that menopause sometimes kicks my ass and I can't forget my own name. But it means that I'm human. I'm showing up at being human and vulnerable. And so, all of that to say that the last 10 years have really been a vision quest. So my ancestry, my father Nigerian, my mother Guyanese, South American, Amerindian. The last 10 years, a vision quest is when you go out on this journey, usually on your own, to try and understand who you are. Burning Man was that for me. That's why I mentioned it in the beginning. But then I realized that I need to do my own. So this was in Brazil, reconnected with some of the community. But I realized that everything that I've done over the last 10 years has been another step towards that vision quest, to understand myself, to not be afraid, to show up my unapologetically weird, neurodivergent peacock self. And that's okay. And recognizing that one of my mentors gave me this quote once, and remember I mentioned the thing about art, and I was like, I'm not an artist because I haven't done all this stuff. And he gave me this quote, and I just thought I wanted to finish on here. It's Alain de Botton, who says, "The artists of the future may be adept with brushes and paints or with film, but they will also have the skills of an architect, a geologist, a public speaker, a politician, or a scientist. What will identify them as an artist is an interest in art's true historic mission, the promotion of a sensory understanding of what matters most in life. They will create occasions which might mean a tower, a crater, a dinner party, a kindergarten, for events that promote the values to which art has always been devoted. We shouldn't be surprised or see it as a loss of what art has always been about. If many of the artists of the coming decades do not produce traditional objects and instead head directly for the underlying mission of art, changing how we experience the world." Thank you.